Going crazy. All right, welcome to episode 126 of Trek Live. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some Deep Space Nine. Before we get started in that, Bill, how you doing this morning?
Well, like we've been talking about for a couple weeks, this is going to be kind of a new thing for us. We haven't done a whole lot of Deep Space Nine conversation over the last however many years we've been doing this. So it's kind of like the last frontier of old Star Trek that we haven't really spent a whole lot of time like specifically talking about. So really looking forward to this week since we're going to the very beginning of Deep Space Nine, talking about Emissary and maybe some other episodes that come in the very early days of the show. But moving forward, I think we're gonna be doing a lot of Deep Space Nine.
Yep. It just so happens that we finished. I finished TOS, so it kind of worked out perfectly. I'm moving on to Deep Space Nine, as you guys know. So I'm excited to jump into Deep Space Nine because it's been a while. I'm going to reiterate that it has been 5 years, 5+ years maybe, since I've watched it. So it should be a fun time.
And even like about just the 5 years is obviously a lot of time, but like all these shows do, like you're at a very different point in your life watching this than you were the first time you saw it. So even what memories you have of it come from a very different point in your life, and I think with that comes new perspective, and might as well be a new show. I think, in a lot of ways. So I'm interested to see what you have to say as we get through, as you get through the show. I'm sure we'll have topics. A lot of the topics that we decide to cover on Trek Live stem from what we're rewatching, what's kind of fresh for us, since we're both kind of perpetually cycling through rewatches. So because of that, because you're in Deep Space Nine and it's such a fresh thing, I think there's going to be a lot of Deep Space Nine, like other topics besides like this. This is going to be basically like a extended rewatch recap kind of thing. We're going to talk about the episodes you've watched. But more specific, nitty gritty things I think are probably coming related to Deep Space Nine. So, looking forward to it.
So definitely stay tuned, stay subscribed for more Star Trek content if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube. So before we jump into my stuff, Bill, how's your rewatch going?
Since the last time we did this, I don't think I had watched Captain's Holiday yet. I think that's the newest episode for me. Captain's Holiday is not one of my personal favorites. A lot of people really like it. It's definitely one of those. I don't know if it's divisive, but people tend to be hot or cold on it. Like I said in the little mini Twitter review I posted, I love the very beginning of it. I love Picard having to be kind of shoved into shore leave by Riker and Troy. I like all that stuff. I like humanizing Picard and seeing him, kind of worn down by the job and needing a break. And we got a little bit of that from Kirk in like shore leave, for example. So seeing that from Picard's angle is kind of cool. Everything that happens once he gets to Risa, I can take it or leave it. That's the obvious like Vash debate. Like, do you like Picard's pairing with Vash? Some people do, some people don't. I don't dislike it. I like the fact that Picard is past Picard being a guy who, like, in his academy days, in his young days, was a little bit more of a rogue, a little more gung ho, caution to the wind, kind of guy until he, had his injury and kind of had to mature from that. Is kind of the way the show I think portrays it. Seeing Dash kind of channel some of that younger Picard out of him, it's kind of cool. I like that about it. But the mechanics of the episode, like the mystery of it, the adventure they go on, it doesn't totally do anything for me. But there were some nice things in it for sure, especially in the early portion of it. It's not a bad episode, in my opinion. Not a favorite, especially like we said last week with Allegiant, coming off of the hot run classics just a few episodes before. I think maybe doesn't help Captain's Holiday's cause for me.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think coming off the heels of such a great run, I think it kind of takes away from Captain's Holiday a little bit. But I'm less forgiving. Not say more forgiving on the episode. Um, I think it's just a fun kind of nice little change of pace to get Picard off the ship and to Ryza. So
True, true. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of neat things about it.
there's some good humor in it. I think at least for me. But yeah.
Sure. No, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it has moments where it's funny.
Yeah.
I like Riker tricking Picard into displaying the Gorgon.
Yeah.
Telling him what it means and what.
It's been a while since we've had a hiccup.
What
All right, I think we're back. Man, it's been a while since that's had a hiccup like that. Sorry. Uh, um, yeah, the unavoidable potential connection drops come with the territory when we're doing a live broadcast. So we apologize, but it's not a lot we could do. Just kind of roll with the punches as we do here, Trek Live. Kind of reel it back into what we were talking about, Captain's Holiday. If you have anything else, Bill, with Captain's Holiday.
I think that's it. I think we kind of lost connection, as I was saying. I think as the episode goes, I lose it a little bit more. Like,
just like the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first half of it I'm into. I think a lot of humor's, running on all cylinders for the most part in the first half of the episode. But I think as the mystery gets going and the shenanigans start, the adventure story becomes the focus. I get less into it. But it's an interesting episode because it brings out a lot of interesting takes from people, because people seem so divided on it. Some people really love it, some people really don't like it less than I do. But yeah, that's all I have. I'm
Okay.
anxious to talk about Deep Space.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's just jump into the Deep Space Nine talk. The topic of today.
Yeah.
So I am on episodes. I think the last episode I watched was episode 6, actually. So I'm cruising right along, which is surprising to me because I just looked and I didn't realize that the first season is a little bit short. It's 19 episodes.
Yeah, both Deep Space Nine and Voyager premiered in January as opposed to the traditional September for usual network TV, especially back then. So a little bit of a shortened first season for both of those shows.
So the last episode I watched was Q-less.
Okay.
Yeah, I think let's just. I want to talk about the pilot, and then we're
let's
gonna
talk about Emissary.
and then kind of move on to the few episodes that I've watched. So overall, man, I think it's a perfect pilot. It feels really big. It feels really grand. I think introducing the characters goes really well. It feels natural. I like that they don't all kind kind of come in at the same time. They're very staggered. But man, it's hard to maybe talk about. Sorry, to put it into words, but it's I think it's one of the stronger pilots in my opinion.
I think it is because I think it's really focused on Sisko. I think time is spent introducing these other characters for sure, but and I think it does a good job of introducing those other characters. And I think the approach, like you kind of just mentioned, that the crew kind of staggers in kind of throughout the episode. You know, the episode starts with a lot of focus on O'Brien. He's already kind of there.
Yeah.
Odo and Kira, and then later in the episode, maybe a couple acts in, Dax and Bashir show up, so you get a little bit of them. So I think that's a cool approach. But the real heart of the episode is definitely Sisko's sort of recovery from losing his wife at Wolf 35.
Yeah, it's almost like
out where he wants to be.
Yeah, an origin story, at least for Sisko.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really focused on his background and kind of filling us in on who this guy is, where he is emotionally. You know, what kind of really establishing that he's very different than the captains we've gotten before.
Very
he's
different.
Not a captain yet. He's a commander. He has conflict about his place in Starfleet if he wants to be there. The show begins with him, really struggling with his place in the universe and what kind of career path he wants, what kind of life he wants to lead. That's not typical of at the time when all we had was Kirk and Picard, who, for all intents and purposes, live for their command and are career people who have no doubt about what they're doing. Sisko is definitely a different kind of flavor.
Yeah, especially with Sisko in this episode, you see even the arc in the first episode, right? He starts off, he's with his demeanor, especially with Picard. It's really standoffish. It's really, it's really different. And then by the end of the episode, it's a different character almost. And how he asks him, maybe not to put in that little recommendation that he talked about earlier in the episode, but you just see the character growth even in the first episode, and from then on, you just know that this is going to be a great show, just because, even in the first episode, there's an arc.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that leads me to think that Emissary might be my favorite pilot. I think the way that it's so constructed with that definitive arc, the beginning, middle, and an end, it's such a standalone, while it's setting up like the most serialized of the early shows, pre-Discovery, pre-Picard kind of stuff. The pilot is such a sort of standalone picture of this person and dealing with a very specific thing, dealing with a lot of wife and all the trauma that comes from that.
Yeah.
I love the way that it has so much conviction about what it's about. It's clearly about him.
Yeah.
His struggle.
Yeah.
And I think his two scenes kind of bracketing the episode with Picard kind of tell the story. The first scene at the beginning when he's in the observation lounge on the Enterprise, saying he's not sure he really wants to be there, and he's not convinced that he's going to be with Starfleet tomorrow. Even like he's dealing with a lot of stuff. And living on a Bajoran space station, on the far reaches of the frontier, far, far away, in a miserable part of the galaxy, might not be fun for him and his son. But at the end, he kind of decides it is where he needs to be. So I really like that. I like the single-mindedness of exploring his arc in the episode.
I really like that the episode does fall into that Swiss Army knife kind of theory that we talk about here on Trek Live a lot. That the episode, it's an action adventure. It's got some great dramatic stuff. It's got some big sci-fi concepts. It's got a lot going on. So I think
it does. I think in my experience talking to people about Emissary, the thing that sort of determines its success rate with a person is how well does the stuff with Sisko in the wormhole, talking to the wormhole aliens, the prophets, whatever you want to call them, how well does that work for you? Like, for some people, they find that a little too artsy, a little too Star Trek trying to flex its like almost Fellini-esque
Yeah.
art film kind of muscles,
Yeah.
like trying to do that, and it just lands thud for some people, and it really drags the episode down. In my experience, talking to people, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak for anybody specifically, but and some people find it really powerful. Sisko's journey to kind of become more comfortable with himself and dealing with where he is in life through having to explain, linear existence, what it means to have a past, a future, and a present, like what that even means to something that can't perceive that.
Which is such a big thing to tackle, though. Yeah.
Yeah, like to me, that's my favorite thing about the episode. I love that it does that because it is ambitious, it's difficult to do. It's a big science fiction concept, and it's so human. It's like such the human condition, like battling with your past and what it means to your future and how it relates to where you are today. Like that's the whole thing, and that's what so many people deal with. Sisko's obviously dealing with a very traumatic version of it with the loss of a wife and dealing with being a single father. Like these are the kinds of struggles he's dealing with, which a lot of people do. There are a lot of people in the world who have that exact kind of experience and can relate directly with what Sisko's dealing with. But I think what Sisko's having to do and how he's exploring his life is universal. I think anybody could relate, if not with the specific challenge that he's facing. The sort of struggle he's trying to deal with.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is, that part of the episode, those scenes, do you find them draggy? Do you find them repetitive? Do you find them? Did you like it? I mean, what were your?
I really enjoyed it. I think I like that it's kind of maybe at the back end of the episode, just because it's the groundwork is laid, I think, successfully to kind of get get to know this kind of character, because if you don't really know this character, it can kind of seem maybe out of left field a little bit, to use a baseball term. But I think it's really, they lay the groundwork pretty well in the episode, to kind of,
I think the opening with the flashback to Wolf 359, which is a thing that we all know.
Yeah.
Watching TNG, I think weaving it into the continuity is really,
which is cool.
A cool move. Yep. Tying it into Best of Both Worlds and Borg is a really neat idea. That all, I think most Star Trek fans, watching it in real time or now, like in the years after, can relate to that. They know exactly what it is and how it happened and why it happened. It's easy to envision. Showing it to us that way, I think, it sets it up perfectly. What we're going to see later with him in the wormhole, dealing with his trauma. I think forcing us to live through it with him in the form of that flashback really does set us up. Along with other scenes like talking to Picard, I think that's a big moment. I think having a character not necessarily dress Picard down, but talk to Picard in a way that's not like, revering him and kind of bowing to his greatness. Somebody who's uncomfortable with Picard and kind of put off by him is a powerful thing.
But
so
it's
there are things like that sprinkled through it that I think.
But it's you also relate a little bit. You can see why. Okay, you understand why Sisko would be a little bit standoffish, or at least a little bit, his temperament a little bit different than a normal Starfleet officer. What he's gone through, especially. So, I like to see that. I like to see that. Something traumatic happens. There's repercussions. It's not just the next episode. It's we can see the repercussions of something pretty big that happened.
Yes, Sisko's not like us. Sisko's not like in the audience with Captain Picard on the Enterprise and days after, watching him recover or watching him do his thing after Best of Both Worlds, after his experience with the Borg. He's he knows what he knows happened, and he was there, and he was personally affected by it, and he doesn't have a personal relationship with Picard. He doesn't know who he is. Like, he doesn't know him personally. There's no connection there other than he indirectly, however it happened, he's responsible for the death of his wife and the death of many other people, I'm sure, on the Saratoga. So it's easy to see, I think, how Sisko would feel that way about Picard. But I think because of who it is, because it is Picard, he's such a revered character, and he's captain of our ship on this other show that was running concurrently at the same time as Deep Space Nine. It adds a lot of punch to Sisko's backstory, and I think, like you said, it sets up what we're going to get to later, where Sisko is forced to kind of confront those demons.
Yeah. But what a start, though. I mean, you got to think about it. I feel like they have to start like this. I mean, look what they're coming off kind of the heels of a really popular, The Next Generation, and you got another show that you're in competition with. So it's this. I just wish I could go back and just be in that, the production side of things. And the pressure probably was enormous. But I mean, it's just amazing that they were so ambitious. It was such a big sci-fi concept, but also just a big story. There's a lot going on. It's just, I love it.
Oh, they were definitely flexing, I think, in the video, like in the beginning of that episode. I think opening it with 359, which we don't see in the Best of Both Worlds.
No,
the Enterprise shows up in the aftermath of it. They see the after.
Yes.
The pieces being left before Cube after it happened. So at the time, getting to see that in some way. And, I always think of that shot of Sisko in the escape pod.
Yeah.
Just the quick the escape pod ejecting, and him looking out the window at the ship blowing up, and I think it's really strong stuff. Really,
yeah.
You put yourself in the shoes of, I was really young at the time. I vaguely remember it, but watching this new show come on in the while TNG's still running, and trying to do this new thing. It's going to be set on the space station. The captain's not even a captain; he's a commander. A lot of skepticism about what the show's going to be and how it's going to work. That opening really, I think, kind of there's a mic drop moment in there. I think in that teaser that really works well.
I really want to convey how different this show feels than the rest of the. I think just especially coming off, I think TNG and TOS were my last two shows. I think coming off, it's just so different. The characters are so different. There's where their loyalties lie. Kira with the freedom fighter that comes onto the station, and which the loyalties, where does her loyalties lie? O'Brien disregards a director, or not a director. I don't know if it's a director. She doesn't follow orders. Lets the guy go. We'll talk about in a few other episodes. Captain Pursuit. So these characters very, very, very different. So than the typical Starfleet, atypical Starfleet officer. So it's really refreshing to see. Which I guess it adds to. It kind of fills in the universe, right? Because I mean, it's a big universe. Not every Starfleet, posting is going to be atypical and then on the flagship. So it's really nice to see, just this different show.
Different, sure.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it before. The Enterprise D being the flagship. TNG. I think you're getting a window into the sort of the best of the best, and an upper tier of maybe Starfleet, the cut above the rest kind of people, with a high standard, and not that Deep Space Nine, not that those crewmen are incapable, but it's a different brand. I think it's just a different kind of cat that goes to Deep Space Nine than goes to serve on the flagship on the Enterprise D. So yeah, I think it makes sense that. Maybe some of the people who are on Deep Space Nine,
but
some of the characters we come into contact with are cut from a different cloth and have a different makeup, and they're in a different situation. They're out kind of like we've talked about with Voyager. Voyager is a different kind of thing, but out in the far-flung regions of space with no real call, nobody to help. Very much on an island by themselves. Deep Space Nine's kind of similar. They're they're not in out of complete reach.
I can't remember how long the time was, but they said the D was 12 or 24 hours away or something like that. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And they're not just flying through space. I mean, they're kind of stuck. They're sitting there, and they're dealing with.
They do move the station, though.
They do move the station.
Yeah. Yeah. But even Sisko, I mean, he's really walking that fine line with breaking the rules and working with with Quark with uh, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I think that's another element.
He bends the rules. Yeah.
I love that about Deep Space Nine, the Quark stuff. You know, Quark is a character you could spend all day talking about, but the TNG tries to play in the territory of like having civilians on the ship and families on the ship and non-enlisted people, but it doesn't really go there very often. It's not TNG doesn't spend a lot of time exploring the idea of non-Starfleet officers really playing a part in this whole thing. It's a little bit there with Guinan and different characters that kind of come and go here and there, but Deep Space Nine leans so heavily into not only just civilians, but like you were saying with like Kira and Odo, people who have different allegiances and don't necessarily have a clean cut, command structure to follow. Like, they're in a different line. And then you have Quark, who's very civilian, and they're trying to build up the civilian population and having Station B like a hub for commerce and people coming and going and kind of putting down roots and living there and making it like a normal place to be. That's such a different thing than what we get on TNG. It's just a different flavor. It's one of my favorite things about it. I love that scene in Emissary you're kind of talking about where Sisko's kind of twisting Quark's arm to stay. And
throws a family member in the brig, and if he has to stay, release him. That's like not an atypical Starfleet officer would do. Like, I have a picture of an atypical Starfleet. I mean,
can't see Picard doing it.
Yeah, it's just like, man, that's all right. That's really refreshing to see.
It is. Yeah, it's different, and it's a unique challenge. I mean, Sisko has in some ways a tougher job than Picard does. Different job. I mean, they're both difficult in their own way. Being the captain of the flagship has challenges for sure, but Sisko has less of an arsenal at his disposal. He's kind of flying without a net.
Yeah.
To some extent, and he's got to use what he has. But I just love the wide breadth of characters. I love the different kind of people that we come into contact with. They're not all officers on a ship who have clear-cut, roles and chain of command and have clean, lanes to play in. You get, especially in the early part of the show where you are with Kira and Odo, like kind of being in an uncomfortable spot with, they're stuck working with these Starfleet guys, but they're not Starfleet, and they don't really have any kind of allegiance to Starfleet. They don't have. Is Starfleet that different than the Cardassians who were just here running this thing? Like, what's really the difference? Maybe they walk and talk a little differently, and they have different end games in mind, but at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. And then you get the civilians like Quark and others. But yeah, I mean, I guess my question to you would be, now that you're like 6 episodes in, but whether you want to think about it like where you are completely now or just through the lens of Emissary, which characters do you think, hit the ground running? Like, do you think are really well drawn and really interesting from the outset? Who are you drawn to in the early part of the show now that you're, kind of getting into it? Who's a success right out of the gate?
Quark, I think, is so good. I think Odo is up there too. I think his relationship with other characters are there for sure. I'm not really the character. Maybe he's a little bit shaky. Kira is there. I think she's a firecracker, and she is. Yeah, I love her character from the first. She's in the office going off about something slamming down the display. It's just like, yes, this is cool. Dax, I think is going to take some warming up. But I think that's a tough character to play, right? You got to, which we've seen in Star Trek before, where you've got to play a character but have other characters infused. It's a tough thing to do. Bashir, I think is a little bit of a mess. But O'Brien, I guess, is kind of not fair because he's already been on a show. Yeah, so he's kind of been established, so I think that kind of helps a little bit, at least to keep the cast.
Speaking of which, real quick, just a real quick aside, since you're talking about O'Brien, I think one of my favorite things in Emissary is his little goodbye with Picard. I think that's such a nice little, it's a cute little moment that I think it's kind of an easy fan servicey kind of thing to do, but I think it's successful and it works every time.
Yeah, I think
especially if you watch it like the way I watch it, the way I tend to watch it with TNG and Deep Space Nine kind of overlapping. Having seen O'Brien a lot through TNG, coming and going, and then kind of in real time watching him leave and go to Deep Space Nine, and like it works really well.
Yeah, I think it works really well because I think it fits those two characters really well. I think that it just fits Picard's. He does these small little things that really mean a lot to people. So even just the small little thing, just going down to the to the transport room and then talking and saying goodbye. And so yeah, I think it works perfectly. Doesn't do too much, but says just what it needs to. So.
And then Dax, really quick, you mentioned. I think Dax is an interesting case of a character who kind of sees a slowly developed shift in her character. I think not sure how much you remember from your old days of watching the show, but Dax becomes a much more loose, relaxed, roguish kind of a badass kind of character later on. But in the early part of the show, she's much more almost Vulcan, like very quiet, subdued, wise, logical scientist. To me, like I think it took a while. I don't know. I'm sure it's a combination of both. The writer aspect of it and then performance as well. Like finding that money zone where it really works. I think in the early days they envisioned the character much more in one vein of almost like a Vulcan in the way she operates. And
yeah, I'm just trying to the way she comes off to me. It's almost like it's they're trying to use her as like a little bit of a buoy kind of to Sisko's past, or kind of like an insight to Sisko's past a little bit, to kind of help develop maybe Sisko and then also the Dax character. So, which is fine with me, but it's I'm curious and excited to kind of see where that character goes, because don't remember a whole lot of how the character develops. So that'll definitely be a talking point in the future of to see how that character kind of develops and see where they go with it.
I never really thought of it that way. I think in the early days, you're absolutely right. The character is kind of intended to, certainly through what you just said, like kind of operating as like a buoy for Sisko and being the window into Sisko's past and somebody for Sisko to talk about the old days and his background. I think she's almost there as sort of a mirror to Sisko to help develop Sisko while also developing her as well. I think the more the show, edge away from that and let Dax be her own thing,
which
becomes her own thing.
But which early on to me isn't that big of a deal, because I think a lot's changing, right? I think there's something good about having something comfortable. I think especially for Sisko. But I think I'd like to maybe move on a little bit. Yeah.
Sure,
with the character.
Yeah,
not just us talking, but just with the Dax character.
I got you. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's critical. I think it's a critical kind of component to getting Sisko to want to stay. I think if Dax isn't there and he doesn't have that kind of anchor, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he lands on a different answer at the end.
Yeah.
But having a comfort person to lean on a little bit and have as a sort of counselor, for lack of a better word, helps him get there. So I think all that makes sense. I hadn't really thought of her character in the early days as that, the way you kind of put that, sort of operating as a buoy for Sisko. But it's exactly true. I think it's an interesting way to look at how the character evolves over time. Keeping your eye on that and seeing how often they kind of go back to it.
Yeah, because in the early episodes, in the early episodes, like they go to lunch or dinner and they talk and it's there's some comfortable aspects to that character, and even Sisko, just the way he just seems a little bit more comfortable when he's interacting with Dax. So
definitely.
We'll see.
And Any others that I don't know. You kind of covered everybody, I think. Kind of rundown with how the characters are kind of introduced and rolled out in the early episodes.
Yeah, I think covered. I mean, yeah.
Who you said Quark is comes first to mind as like successful right out of the gate.
Yeah.
It sounds like Kira also.
Yes.
Pretty like spot on into her right from the beginning. I think what else? Yeah, I mean, I think they're all interesting. I think the show does a good job of right from the beginning, kind of O'Brien aside as sort of a known commodity from the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Establishing that all these characters are kind of fresh and different, and not cookie cutter, shifts from, slight shifts from TNG kinds of characters. I think Dax is a very different thing. Bashir, I think, like you kind of mentioned, is kind of a mess at the beginning. Having a character who's a little arrogant, a little green, a little rough around the edges, a little not always pleasant to be around. Is a bold choice.
His stuff with like interacting with like I don't know, his like the female side of things with him like saying like the Academy story gets him every time. It's just like that doesn't age well. So so there's definitely some cringeworthy stuff there.
Yeah, Bashir is definitely, I think, the example of the struggle in the early days. I think he was the character that they had the hardest time wrapping their arms around. But he's an interesting case to watch. We kind of talked about it on our Doctors episode a couple weeks ago. Like the interesting case of Bashir. I think he's going to be an interesting one for you to watch because he changes a lot in some natural ways and in some maybe not so natural ways. Some force-fed changes that kind of come along the way. But he's an interesting character to watch develop as the show goes on.
Yep.
We have Rob in the chat. How's it going, Rob?
Welcome, Rob.
What about trying to think anything else with Emissary? I mean, a cute little touch that I really liked, real quick. If you may not have noticed this, but in the intro, in the credit sequence, in the Deep Space Nine credit sequence, the wormhole at the end is always it's always there. In Emissary, it's not there because one of the things they kind of hid apparently from the very beginning of the show is the idea like the wormhole was kind of intended to be a surprise. So if you watch the title sequence for Emissary at the end of the credit sequence, the wormhole's not there because the wormhole hadn't been discovered yet. And I feel like that's a big moment that really works. I love the discovery of the wormhole. I love them going through it. I love Sisko and Dax in it, and the what the hell is happening. They each see a different thing. Like I think that's really well executed. I love that swath of the episode. And like you kind of talked about, one of my favorite things about it is like the way you said it with the Swiss Army knife kind of idea, kind of existing within the episode. You have everything from the action adventure stuff, moving the space station, dealing with Cardassians who are threatening, crazy science fiction stuff like the discovery of the wormhole and
the dramatic stuff with Sisko.
The dramatic character stuff with Sisko, the intro of the world building kinds of things, comedy in there with Quark. It really does kind of offer a lot of different things. It's ambitious in its scope and it's trying to do.
I mean, it does. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I think at least the way I see it is, I think the stuff they maybe dealt with early on, or at least maybe pitching the show, they're like, what can happen on a space station, right? But you start adding a bunch of these big things, right? Just the Cardassian stuff and the Bajoran stuff is big enough, and then you got all these civilians, you got Starfleet in there, but then you just add this cherry on top, just to amplify this whole situation, this battle between these two species, and then you just add this huge thing that literally changes that region of space. It's just very grand, and I think just very fitting for a pilot.
Agreed. I think it's done a really good job of establishing its scope and kind of laying down the gauntlet that interesting things can happen here.
Yes.
It's a space station, but it's not going to be us just kind of sitting around and watching ships go by. Like there's going to be some drama here, and there's going to be interesting dynamics surrounding the station with the Cardassians and Bajorans, and a lot of things are going to be able to capitalize on, and they do. So I think it's. I posted a poll question asking, of the 4 2-hour kind of Rick Berman era Star Trek pilots, which is your personal favorite? And now that you've, in like the last year or 2 years, cleanly watched the pilots for TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise.
It's Emissary.
You think it's Emissary?
Yeah. To answer your question, yeah, it's Emissary. Maybe that's just. It might be just the recency. I think is probably playing a major role, but I think but when I look back at it, I don't know. It's tough because I think all 4 are pretty strong. So
I think Emissary is the most bold of them. I think Emissary is the most ambitious with what it tries to do. I can't say enough how much I love the Star Trek Fellini kinds of things. Inside the world.
Yeah.
I really love that. I really like the ambitiousness of it. I think it's profound. I think it's big and existential and does what Star Trek is aimed to do. Like it's trying to talk about the human condition and through a science fiction scope. And what's more science fiction and human than trying to define what human existence
to
is.
A group of wormhole aliens.
What does it mean to be born, live, and die? Like to have past, present, and future. Like to something that cannot conceive of that idea. Like, how do you explain it? And he uses his personal experiences with his wife and meeting her and losing her and baseball, things he loves. I love the scene using baseball to define life. Like how every time you swing the bat, something could happen, and there's an after effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shockwave of different possibilities that come from each choice, and each time you decide to swing or not. I love that. I love that. I think that's the thing that might break the tie for me. I think Caretaker and Broken Bow are both awesome, also very big, feature kind of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Introductions to shows, but I think Emissary goes to some more risky places.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about, if we have some time, a few episodes.
Sure.
If you have anything about anything more about Emissary, just don't hesitate to let us know in chat or in the comments or anything. But we are going to move on to some a few episodes. I will say that the early episodes do a good job of using the entire cast. That's one thing I didn't kind of notice kind of early on. Probably 2 of my favorites. We kind of already talked about them, Babel and Captive Pursuit. 2 very different episodes. I think both are pretty solid episodes. Probably one of my favorites in this season. A frustrating episode is Keyless. It's pretty frustrating. I don't like that they, the 6th episode in, you're already using a very well known, very well used characters, and so I get it was frustrating a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like Keyless always feels like it's an obvious, and it's natural. A lot of shows, especially then, would do it. They're kind of throwing a lifeline to, especially knowing the TNG's running at the time. They're running concurrently. Like you're watching 2 episodes a week, one of each show.
Yep.
There's a lot of reticence and a lot of hesitation with Deep Space Nine because of how different it is. Just like there was hesitation with TNG, just like there was hesitation with Voyager and Enterprise and Discovery and Picard, like always. But I think Keyless is definitely an attempt to signal to people who might be hesitating with Deep Space Nine that hey, we're gonna play in some TNG kind of territory. Don't forget TNG's happening over there, so you might get some TNG kind of stuff here.
Yep.
characters can pop in, or we can play with the same toys that Next Generation does. But I think it's to some pretty weak effect. I've never been a huge fan of it. I think it feels force fed. I don't think Q fits naturally in that dynamic as well as he does in Voyagers. We watched the recent Trek After Dark. We watched Death Wish from Voyager, where I think Q works much better.
Yes.
In a non-TNG environment than he does in Q-less. Personal opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Q-less, but Babel, however you pronounce it, is an interesting one that I think you hit the nail on the head. Kind of watching it in the current climate
that hit very close to home.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's an episode that I think a lot of people, I don't want to say they dismiss it, but it's kind of in the minds of most people. I think they would say it's kind of middle of the road under normal circumstances, but given the current climate and what we're dealing with, it really adds another little level of urgency to it, and a little different interest in it. So I'd be curious to kind of watch that and some others. There are other episodes of Star Trek that deal with like these pandemic kinds of things, grappling with the crew. But Babel has some imagery in it and some.
Does they get the station gets thrown into lockdown? That like the promenade is empty. There's some really eerily similar things that I think, like you said, add to the episode. Maybe bumping it up from more of a middle of the road type of episode to maybe that B- range a little bit for me. So yeah.
Trekkie Rob says Babel is a very apt episode considering what we're going through at the moment. Yep, totally agree.
Yeah,
and he's talking about he loves Captain Pursuit. Tosk is such a great character.
Oof, yeah.
Tosk is, I think you mentioned it early on, talking about O'Brien's sort of like introduction in the beginning part of the show. His choice in Captain Pursuit is definitely kind of I think a landmark moment in Deep Space Nine that it sort of sets the tone early on that, like you were kind of alluding to, these characters, this crew can't necessarily or won't or chooses not to necessarily play by the same rules that, say, the Enterprise D crew does. Like,
well, Cisco
does
starts at the top. Hey, Odo, just take it easy. Take your time. Just like, what? And I love that playfulness at the end with, O'Brien and Cisco. Just, he went through his plan, but I didn't expect to get through, and then, it's just good. I love that little interaction at the end.
That's a really good episode. I think that's other than Emissary, I think that's the first time Deep Space Nine
hits a home run.
Today, or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of flexing a little bit, saying, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is us. Yeah, we can hit it. We can hit a double in the gap or a home run.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Yeah.
And Captain Pursuit is definitely that. I think it takes really good advantage of O'Brien. I love everything you just mentioned, the kind of wrap up of the episode. Everything about O'Brien and Cisco's sort of dynamic towards the end of it, and Cisco's decision to, not let it happen, but not try too hard to stop it.
But we're bending the rules again. This just like he did with Quark. It's just so different from.
He's a different kind of.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Different kind of situation.
Yeah.
He's out in the outskirts by himself. Doesn't have easy choices to make. I really like that one. I like it more every time I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially kind of like we were talking about with Captain's Holiday, Legion's kind of coming in the surroundings of this run of classics. I think Captain Pursuit is a really great episode, but in the early days, it really stings. Like, really there's some cool action in it, some cool phaser fights on the promenade. It's cool 90s Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Rob hit the nail on the head. Tosk is probably the key to the whole thing. That character is kind of he's distinctive and unique and easy to root for.
But again, it's similarity.
Character.
Yeah, there's some similarities. Like for trying to explain this existence to this character, just like in Emissary.
Yeah, it's Star Trek. It's, at the end of the day, it's about the human condition and life and the most basic stuff, but doing it in a science fiction kind of way. I think Captain Pursuit is, in my mind, the best episode of the batch you've watched. Probably the best episode of
besides Emissary, maybe.
For a little while, like into the first season.
Yeah, I see some Move Along Home on the horizon, which I'm trying to. Couple things that I'm trying to do early on in the season. The first one, I've talked about this before, but I really do think that I change my mindset when I first start a series. The episodes may be a little bit higher than they should, and that they actually are, just because it's new and I haven't been here in a while. So I'm trying to put that aside, and I'm also trying to keep other people's opinions and Twitter and all that, and trying to just look at it for what it is, and try to not be influenced, even if it is maybe dubbed one of the worst, if not the worst episode of Star Trek.
You might love Move Along Home. It's possible. If you go in with an open mind and you embrace its traits, the things that it tries to do.
Yeah, we'll see.
It can land.
We'll see.
You never know. It's a good drinking episode for sure. It's a good episode to watch with friends with a few beverages.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the episodes we haven't talked about, Past Prologue, Move Along Home. No, not Move Along Home.
No, that's 9. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little further down. Past Prologue being very early, right after Emissary.
Intro to Garrick. Yeah.
Intro to Garrick.
Yeah.
Introduces Garrick. Leans heavily into the Cardassian Bajoran stuff. Kind of, I think, telegraphing that the Bajorans are not a monolithic, united people. They're people who feel differently about the way forward and how to deal with picking up the pieces from the occupation. There are more extreme elements. There are more moderate elements where Kira fits into that. It explores all those things. How dynamics in wartime or in this case occupation time and in peacetime are two different things. Kira's relationship with this guy when they're fighting the Cardassians is different than it is in peacetime after the fact.
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting things there. I don't know that the episode's great. I think it's okay. But I think it does some important things for setting the tone for what the show's going to be and the kinds of themes that it's going to double back to a lot. Man Alone is a murder mystery, kind of standard issue Star Trek, I think.
Yeah.
Murder mystery, it's okay. Like, it's forgettable.
Yeah.
Silly kind of murder mystery. It's fine, but...
but I think it's also these episodes do have some continuity flowing through them.
Yeah.
The station is still not 100%. It's still kind of trash, and it's still O'Brien's still getting used to the systems and how this thing works. That flows through the bunch of these episodes. The dynamic, I think there's still some trust issues with a few of these characters and where their loyalties lie, and between Starfleet and the Bajorans and and all that. So I'm not bashing these episodes, or we're not bashing these episodes. I'm just saying that there are some continuity things that it's really nice to see.
And that's the thing. Like, while an episode like Pest Prologue and A Man Alone, while I don't think either one is like incredibly successful as a standalone episode, and they're not particularly memorable outings, but I do think Past Prologue does a lot to establish Kira's dynamic and her loyalty issues and how she's going to operate here. And I think Man Alone does the same sort of thing for Odo. I think it puts him into focus and calls into question how Sisko feels about him and how he feels about Sisko and Starfleet, and what his role is going to be here, and how the loyalties are going to shake out. And Odo is a man alone. He's not even really. He's not a Bajoran. He was actually working with the Cardassians. He was kind of like a neutral arbiter of justice who kind of didn't really have a place with the Cardassians. Didn't have a place with the Bajorans either. Everybody kind of respected him, but nobody loved him. And when he's accused of something like this, where does that leave you? He leaves him by himself and kind of on an island without anybody to really turn to. I think while the episodes themselves are not entirely successful, I do think they're successful providing some
groundwork,
character development, and some continuity that is going to build the greater whole. So I think those are the kinds of things that lead to where I struggle. A lot of people do like curated rewatches. They'll watch the show, but they'll cut episodes out and try to get down to like the bare minimum. to get to like the grand story. And I think with Deep Space Nine, it's particularly difficult to do that because episodes like this,
you need,
add things to the greater whole that will pay off later, not in a direct way. Not that murder mystery doesn't pay off in any kind of real way later on, but the little grains of Odo's character that you get in Mandalorian help.
Yeah. Anything else about Deep Space Nine?
Not really. I think your next clump of episodes has. I think if you watch a handful between now and next week, you're gonna have Move Along Home. You're gonna have The Passenger, the Vegas.
Yeah.
Get some interesting ones in there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a recurring theme, I think, because of the nature of Deep Space Nine and its place in Star Trek history, and your non-recent familiarity with it. I think is going to lead to me saying that every week. Man, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the next slew of episodes, whether they're good or bad or in the middle. They all have interesting things to chew on, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep. I think we're going to wrap up the Deep Space Nine talk here, but I want to reiterate, I'm kind of it's not set in stone of how much Deep Space Nine content that we're going to have. So if you guys want to see more, if you guys want to see maybe a mid-season, update, or do you want me to wait till maybe till the end of the first season, just because it's a little bit of a shorter season? We'll see. I'll talk to Bill and see if you guys want to see a mid-season update. Definitely do that as well. Definitely keep following Twitter because I'm going to be posting about a few episodes and talking about them a little bit. I posted about Babel or or whatever, however you want to pronounce it. So yeah, I think there's only one piece of Star Trek content that we want to talk about this week. It's on my thing. I mean, I could talk about it, but it's.
No, a new episode of Trek Ranks dropped. I was very happy to participate, be a guest.
Crushed it again.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was top 5 stretches of 5 episodes, and
such a fun topic. Yeah,
it's a great topic.
Yeah,
I'm jealous that we didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. I think going to 5. I mean, I feel like stretches of 2 or 3, like putting 5 on it. 5 is a tough number.
Tough, yeah.
It's hard to find 5 in a row that are all like upper echelon. There's a few of them. I think if you listen to it, not just from my list, but from Jim's and from Matt Hansen, who was the other guest. I think we all found some pretty darn good runs of episodes. But it's an interesting way to look at it. It's a cool. I think it definitely had me staring at episode guides for a few days, like looking at Memory Alpha's episode listings and trying to piece together groups of 5 I could advocate for. But
yeah.
Glad to hear it, Rob. Enjoy. It was a lot of fun. Definitely one. I've done quite a few of them, like you said, Trek Ranks, but this one was. I don't want to say it was the most fun, but it was one of the more exciting ones for me to prep for. It was up my alley. I was into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What are we going to do next week? Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can kind of talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to do I tweeted about it last week. We're going to do a fantasy draft of episodes from a season. There is a poll up on my Twitter asking sort of the audience, asking our base of followers out there, Trek Live community, to help us pick a season to do this. So we're going to go back and forth and draft episodes from a given season and see who maybe comes out with a better list of episodes. Different, kind of a similar thing to what we did 2 weeks ago with drafting crew. This is a different way to kind of play with that idea. I like the idea of doing an episode listing from a season to kind of whittle down. Like, I think it'll tell us a lot about how each other feels about these episodes and kinds of episodes we're kind of drawn to, and we're kind of, especially as you get through it and you're like you're through like the classics from that season. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we're pretty much down to TNG season 3 and Voyager season 5 is like kind of hovering a little behind, not insurmountable. So we're going to go with whatever wins that poll. I think later today the poll will close, and then we might do whatever finishes second, probably.
Yeah.
Season.
Yep.
But I think this will be a topic that we recur.
Yes.
Maybe look for some guests to bring on to have other versions of this kind of idea with other seasons.
Yeah, I'm really excited because this is going to be a really fun topic. I think we can use it down the road. So if your season doesn't get picked, or if your favorite show doesn't get picked, just be patient. We're going to probably come back around because this topic is really suited to be used a lot and be done a lot. So it'll be fun to kind of do a little bit different spin of not necessarily a top 5, but yeah, it should be fun.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think like you said, I think it's suited to go back to and kind of there's 30 some seasons to choose from.
Yeah,
different ways to do it. So every time you add a different person, you could do the same season. If we're going to do assuming the poll holds and we do TNG season 3, it's just you and me next week. If say we brought a couple guests on and did it again, and that's a whole different way to do it, and it would bring back completely different, I think, results. So it's kind of an endless topic to play in. So I think we'll be doing it for a while. I think it'll be a recurring theme.
And I think maybe moving forward, if you come to the live stream, you can be part of the draft. Maybe we'll talk to Bill about it and see if we can do that. But I think it would be fun to. Yeah. The more the merrier, I think, because I think once you add more characters, add more people, it starts to get conniving and yeah, it's tougher to grab episodes before they are gone. So that's been episode 126 of Trek Live. We'll be back next week, as we said, talk about some more episodes. But the discussion doesn't have to stop here. Twitter, obviously, Facebook, YouTube. The replays have been posting on Wednesdays. Usually it's 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you've missed any of this episode, I highly recommend visiting it then. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're watching this real quick, before we cut the cord, and you want to participate on this version, if you're watching us on Twitter, you can expand the way you're watching this. You can enter our live stream through Periscope. There's a link somewhere on your screen to watch through Periscope, and you can log in using just your Twitter handle. It'll ask you if you want to log in, and if you just pick your Twitter account, if you have a Twitter account, you can come in, and like Rob is right now commenting, you can do that. So if you're out there watching us right now, but you can't comment because you're just kind of watching it on the little Twitter window, you can fully engage with us by entering the Periscope broadcast and commenting, active participant.
Because that's what.
If you're watching this and you want help with that, you can DM me and I'll help you to figure out how to do that.
Because that's what we want. We want to. This is what our goal here is at Trek Live, is to get just the greater Star Trek the fans together to have a conversation. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
That being said, we'll see you guys next week.
See you.
Thanks.